Hello everybody, this is Dr. Vishal Trivedi from Department of Biosciences and Bioengineering, IIT Guwahati. And what we were discussing about the topics from your biology course for the class 11 and 12 under the program IIT BAL. And in this series, we were discussing about the animal kingdom. So if you can recall, in the previous two lectures, we have discussed about the different aspects related to this particular chapter. That is, we have discussed about the different types of criteria what people are using and what that can be used to even classify the animals and why there is a need to classify the animals. Subsequent to that, we have also discussed about the characteristics as well as the properties of the representative kingdoms, like representative phylums. We discuss about the Porifera, we discuss about the Coelenterata, we discuss about the Titanophora, and then in the previous lecture, we also discussed about the Platyhelminthes as well as the Aschelminthes. So following to that, we are actually now today going to start discussing about some more phylum which are belonging to the acoelomates. So if you see the how the animal kingdom is being divided, it is being divided by utilizing the different types of criteria, whether it is the level of organizations, symmetry, body cavity, or the coelom, or the phylum. So these are the different phylums in which the animals are being divided. So in the previous lecture, we discussed about the cellular level of organizations, and we discussed about the phylum Porifera, which is actually a isolomate as well as the mostly asymmetrical. Then we moved on to a slightly more higher level of organizations where we discuss about the tissue or the organ system. So within the tissue, we have discussed about the radial symmetry, acylomate, and then we discuss about the Coelenterata as well as the Titanophora. And then we moved on to the bilateral symmetry where we discuss about that the animals which are having the acoelomates, and in that category we discuss about the Platyhelminthes, and we discuss several properties related to Platyhelminthes, and then we discuss about the pseudocoelomates. So within the pseudocoelomates, we discuss about the Aschelminthes, and we try to compare the properties of the Platyhelminthes with the Aschelminthes as well, so that you will be able to understand the distinct characters of the Platyhelminthes versus the Aschelminthes. And then the previous lecture we said that we are going to start discussing about the true coelomates the Annelida, Arthropoda, Mollusca, Echinodermata, Hemichordata, and the Chordata. So so the purpose of this particular type of division is, and the way it is being classified is that it actually going to give you the direct connection that see how the people are being, how the animals are being evolved. Like for example, in the case of the tissue or the organ system characterization, organ system of organizations, even within the bilateral symmetry, the organisms are will still be present as like acoelomate or pseudocoelomates, and that's how the organism evolved better and they become the coelomates, and that is a distinct advantage of the animals who are actually having the true coelom. And let's discuss about these organisms and try to understand that how these organisms are so evolved compared to the Platyhelminthes or the Aschelminthes. One of the distinct factor is that Platyhelminthes, or you see the Aschelminthes, they are not free living organisms. They are actually either the endoparasites or they are actually taking up the nutrition from the host, and that actually is only indications that these are the less developed organisms compared to these organisms. So let's start our discussion about with the Annelida and discuss about the different properties of the phylum Annelida. So phylum Annelida, which actually having the different types of worms, whether it is the the Neisseria, earthworm, or the leech. These are mostly aquatic, marine, or freshwater. Some are terrestrial, for example, the earthworm. they are burrowing or the tuberculous, sedentary or flea. Some are commensal and some are parasitic. So, for example, the earthworm is commensal because it acquire the nutrition from the soil, and in return it actually makes the soil more fertile. Whereas the leech is parasitic, so it actually acquires the blood or the nutrition from the host, whereas so it is parasitic. The body is elongated, triploblastic, bilateral symmetry, and truly coelomates and vermiform. So what you see here is the worm-like structure of the earthworm, and it is actually triploblastic, bilateral symmetry. So you can actually cut the worm from the center, and that is actually going to divide the animal into two halves. Then it also contains the coelom, so there is a true body cavity, and then it is a vermiform. So this kind of worm-like structure is called as a vermiform. The body is metameristically segmented externally by the transverse groups and internally by the septa into a number of divisions. So what you see here is that the animal is divided into the different into the segments, like, and these are the true segments, like, which are actually being divided from outside, like with the help of the transverse groups, and internally by the septa. So these are the individual blocks which are actually making the body of the earthworm, and each division is called as a segment, metamere, or the somite. The body organization is a organ great system, so it actually contains the different types of organs for performing the different types of functions. The epidermis is of single layer of columnar epithelial cells covered by the thin cuticle made up of chitin. The body wall is contractile or dermomuscular, consisting of the outer muscle fiber, circular, and inner longitudinal. So that actually is giving them the locomotory powers, so that you will be able to, so they will be able to move from one place to another place. The appendages are joined when they are present. So these are having the joint appendages, which means there will be no breakage. Then locomotory organs are segmented, repeated chitinously bristless, called CT or the chyti, embedded in the skin. It may be bored by the lateral fleshy appendages or the parapodia. Classical examples are the Neisseris, earthworm, and the leech. So this is the Neisseris, this is the earthworm, and this is the leech. So leech is a parasitic animal, whereas the earthworm is a commensal, because it provides in the it makes the soil more fertile. Now, the true schizocoelous coelom, usually divided into the compartment by the transverse septa, mostly well developed in leeches. Coelomic fluid with cells or the carpus. So this is the your coelomic cavity, where you have the different types of organs. The alimentary canal is straight tube like and complete, extending from the mouth to anus. Digestion is entirely extracellular. So this is the alimentary canal, where you have a mouth in the front, so from where it actually takes up the nutrition. Then you have the pharynx. These pharynx are going to chew the food, and that's how it is actually going to make it digestible, and then it is actually going to enter into the oesophagus. Then it will reach to the crop, then it will reach to gizzard, and then ultimately it will reach to the intestine, where the digestion will take place. And then ultimately it will be at other end, there will be an anus. So it is actually having a complete digestive system, which means it actually going to have the mouth on one side, the anus on the other side. Respiration occurs through the skin or the gills of the parapodia and the head. So on the skin, it actually has the gills or the parapodia, through which it actually takes up the oxygen from the outside. The blood vascular system is a closed type. The blood is red due to the presence of hemoglobin or the erythromycin dissolved in plasma. So you can see that the circulatory system is distributing the blood throughout the body of the earthworm, and it also has the heart-like structure. So and that actually pumps the blood, and it has a red color blood, which actually is because there is a pigment called hemoglobin. So this is exactly the same pigment what is present in our blood as well. Then secretion is by the metastatically disposed coiled tubes, nephridia, which communicate the phloem to the exterior. So this is what is a circulatory system of the animals belonging to the phylum Annelida. What you see here is a closed type of blood circulatory system where you have the heart on one side, and then you have the blood vessels, and then it actually supplies the blood to into a enclosed blood vessels like the dorsal vessels or the ventral vessels, and because of that, it is a closed type of system where the blood is being collected back to the heart again. Then the nervous system. Nervous system consists of a pair of cerebral ganglia, brain, and a double ventral nerve cord having a segmented arranged ganglia and lateral nerve in each segments. The receptor organs includes the tactile organs, taste buds, statocysts, photoreceptors, and sometimes eyes with the lenses in some. So you can see that the nervous system is quite well developed in the phylum Annelida compared to when we were discussing about the Platyhelminthes or the Aschelminthes. And what you have here is a nerve ring which is actually in the front of the mouth. So what you have is, like, for example, if you have an Annelida, like this is a mouth, then next to the mouth you have a nerve ring. So that is a starting of the nervous system, and then the nerves are distributed throughout the body, and that's how it is actually going to sense the different types of the signals. Like it has a tactile organs, taste buds, and statocysts and photoreceptors, so that can actually be able to perceive the different types of signals. In some of the annelids, it also has the eyes, which actually can allow these organisms to see the system. They are monoecious, hermaphroditic, or the sexes separate. Cleavage spiral and determined. They are dioecious or unisexual form also present. So the animals present in the phylum Annelida could be of multiple types. It could be a monoecious or the hermaphrodite, which means both the male and female organs are present in the same system, or there could be a sex separate, and there could be dioecious, which means the male and females are separate. For example, in the case of the earthworm, the male and females are present in the same system. The development is direct in monoecious form, but indirect in the dioecious form. So the development is also different if the animal is belonging to the bisexual form or the monosexual form. The larva, when it is present in a trichophore, is characterized in case of indirect development, while in the other, this stage is passed through the development. Regeneration is very common, and it is having a very high power of regenerations. The asexual reproduction occurs in some of the animals, and some of the animals are having very high, so they are also producing through the asexual manner. And the phylum Annelida is very big, so it has actually approximately 8,700 species, and that is still be divided into the classes. So that the distribution is because of the presence of the parapodia, CT, or metamers, and the other morphological features. So what you see here is a life cycle of the earthworm, where what happened is that when in the male and female earthworm comes and they mate with each other, because the ovaries are present onto the 13 segments. So if you count from the front, like if you can count the 13 segments, it is actually going to give you the ovaries, and through which the male and females are mating with each other, and then they are actually having a cocoon like stage, and then cocoon is going through the developmental stages. It is forming a juvenile earthworm, and then the juvenile earthworm is developing and forming the different developmental stages, and then after the 17 days, the juvenile is actually getting converted into adult form, and then it is ready to be participate into the reproduction part. Apart from that, the phylum Annelida also has a very significant applications. So whether it is the application of the earthworm, because the earthworms are called as the farmer's friends animal, because when the earthworms are present in the soil, what they do is actually they eat the soil, and in this process, and then they take up whatever the nutrition is present within the soil, and then they actually throw the excreta. And in this process, what they do is they actually make the soil very porous, and they allow the oxygen to come inside, and that's how the soil is actually become more and more fertile. Compared to that, the people are also using the even the parasitic animal like leech in a therapy which is called as the leech therapy. It is also called as the Jaluka therapy as well, and it is a kind of a Ayurvedic blood purification therapy, which means where you are actually utilizing the bad habit of a leech to drink the blood. So what you do is you are actually allowing the leech to attach to a site where you are expecting some kind of accumulation of the dirty blood, or you are actually having the some kind of inflammations, and that inflammation could be because there is a accumulation of the unpurified blood. So in that case, what you do is you add the leech to that particular site. So leech has a tendency to suck the blood irrespective of whether it is good or bad. So what will happen is the leech is going to eat that particular blood, and in the same process it is actually going to suck up the dirty blood, and that's how it is actually going to remove the blood which is deoxygenated or containing the different types of toxic material. And that's how it is actually being utilized or being used as a Ayurvedic blood purification therapy, where leeches are used to suck the impure blood from the infected part of the body. And it has a very significant applications because it is a non-invasive way of removing the blood, and it is very safe because these leeches are not causing any disease, and they are disease free. So these are the cultivated leech. They are not being like the leech which you can actually capture from the wild and you can use them, because those and leeches could have also the some kind of infection, so they may cause a problem. But these leeches are actually being cultivated in a controlled condition in the lab, and that's how they can be able to use for this particular purpose. So with this, we have discussed about the phylum Annelida, and so they are belonging to the class like true phyllomes. And let's move on to the next phylum, and that is the Arthropoda. So phylum Arthropoda is the largest phylum, and the largest phylum where you have more than more than 70% organisms are belonging to this particular phyla. So if you remember in the beginning, I said that we have approximately 1 million or 1.2 million species, and the Arthropoda itself is actually contributing approximately 800,000 species. So it is actually a largest and the most successful phylum, and it has a very diversified organisms. It starts from very simple, like it starts from the freshwater prawn, or it has a housefly, it has a butterfly, it has a spider, and it has some different kinds of organisms. Arthropodas are solitary or colonial. So for example, the colonial means that they are actually going to form the colony like the honeybee. They are mostly free living, so they don't depend on the host, and they are free living. So they are actually having a very well developed physiology. They are omnipresent and bilateral symmetry. So you can see here, right? This is a cockroach, and you can have the bilateral symmetry. You can cut it from the center, and it is actually going to be developed. It is going to give you the half. Right? So this side is identical to this side, and that's how this is kind of organization is called as the bilateral symmetry. Body is covered by the tough chitinous cuticle. So this actually has a chitin which is present. So you see this feather. This feather is made up of chitin, and as well as the body is also made up of chitin. The body is divided into three parts: the head, thorax, and abdomen. So this is the head part, right, where you have the mouth parts, and that is where you going to have the mouth, where through which the cockroach is eating the food. Then you have the thorax part. The thorax part is actually the abdomen part, so where you're going to have the the alimentary canal and all other kinds of part, right? So this is the abdomen part. Abdomen will continue like that, and then you at the end you're going to have the abdomen, and then you're going to have the anus at the end. Uh, So in some cases, the head and thorax are also fused in some of the organisms, and that then it is called as the cephalothorax. So in some animal, head and thorax forced to form the cephalothorax. Arthropodas possesses legs for crawling. So you can see here, right? The most of these organisms actually contains the legs, which actually allow them to go for like crawling, creeping, or walking. And some these of some some animals which are present in the arthropoda are also having the wings for the flying. For example, the mosquito or the butterfly or housefly. The examples are very, very diversified and very, very huge. Like it's not only related to the insecta, but like they have a very, very diversified animals. Like they have a cockroach, the butterfly, the scorpions, centipedes, and grasshoppers, ants, and this list is very big. As I said, the arthropoda is the largest and the most successful phylum which is present in the animal kingdom. Then the digestive system is complete and divided into the foregut, midgut, and the hindgut. So this is the digestive system where you have the mouth in the front, and next to the mouth you also have the mouth parts, and then it is connected to the esophagus, and then next to the esophagus. So this is this portion is called as the foregut, then midgut, and the hindgut. And then at the end you will see it has also has a rectum. So this is the first organism probably you will encounter where you are actually going to have the all parts of the digestive system, whether it is the stomach or intestine, and then ultimately the rectum also, and then it is going to have the anus at the end. So this is from the the grasshopper. The mouth parts are highly evolved and used for biting, chewing, and sucking. So these are the different types of mouth parts which are present in the cockroach. Like so, you have the maxillary pulp. So these are the side thing, right? Which are, and then you have the paraglossa. Then you have glossa. Then you have the mentum, and then you have the submentum, and then so these are very well organized and diversified mouth parts, and all these mouth parts are being used for different purposes, and that's how they can be very efficient in terms of the biting, chewing, and sucking. The circulatory system is of the open type. See, this is very different from the annelida, where the circulatory system is closed. Here the circulatory system is open. The blood flows in open sinuses and it actually bars the organs. So this is the circulatory system where you will see that the blood is actually getting filled into the central cavity, which is called as the hemocoel, and it is actually going to rinse all the organs what is present in this particular system, and that's how it actually provides the nutrition and all other kinds of the oxygen, and then it also corrects the excretory system and all that. The respiratory organs are gills, trachea, and lungs, and book lungs and book gills. So these are the the respiratory system which is being present, and where you have the trachea, and you have the thoracic spiracles, and you have the the trachea, like longitudinal trachea or the vertical trachea, and all these tracheas are actually having an opening here, like so that so this is a membranous opening through which they can actually be able to take up the oxygen, or they can be able to throw the carbon dioxide or the whatever the gases they want to expel out. And this is the place where the people are utilizing and trying to destroy these particular kind of respiratory system, and that is what the people are doing with the HIT, right? So you might have seen that people are using the HIT for killing the cockroaches. How the HIT is working is that it is actually destroying the respiratory system of a cockroach. So that's how it enters into the cockroach, and then it actually blocks these membranous structures, and that's how the cockroach cannot be able to breathe when you are injecting, or when you're spraying the HITs, and that's how it is actually going to kill the HIT. The excretion takes place by the green glands or the Malpighian glands or Malpighian tubules. Nervous system is formed by the nerve ring and the double ganglionated nerve cords. The sense organs are well developed in the form of antenna. So antenna, what you can see here is the different types of antenna what is present in the uh, in the in the arthropodas. Then it has a compound eye, and then it also has the taste receptors. So what you see here is the compound eye, and this is compound eye is actually being used to allow the arthropodas to visualize. Compound eye is actually a combination of different types of eyes, what is present in the different animals of belonging to the phylum Arthropoda. And what you see here is actually a the collections of the eye parts, and that's how it actually going to give the ability to these animals to absorb the light. Even at a very dim light they could be able to absorb, because the at the end the signal is going to be amplified, because they may have approximately 2000 to 3000 tiny eyes, and that's how it is actually going to have the compound eye. And that's how you might have seen that the mosquito or cockroach and all those can be able to travel and can be able to reach to their destinations, even when there is no light in the room also, because that is good enough for them to observe. It may not be good enough for the humans to observe, because the humans light may sensitivity is very less compared to these compound eyes, and that happen because all these tiny eyes are actually amplifying the signal. As far as the sexes are concerned, the sexes are separate, and it is showing a sexual dimorphism. If you remember, I was discussing about the sexual dimorphism when I was just talking about the Ascaris, and when we are talking about the phylum and phylum and Ascarisis. Sexual dimorphism means there is a distinct features which are present onto the male compared to the female. So what you see here is cockroach. This is a male cockroach and this is a female cockroach. And what you see here is, with just by looking at the cockroach, you can be able to say that this is a big in size, so, and this is a small in size. As far as the body structure is concerned, and then you see the eggs, the legs, and all other kinds of features are different in terms of the male versus female, and that is what is called as the sexual dimorphisms. The animals are oviparous, and the fertilization is internal. The development is direct or the indirect. In the like, there will be some animals which are actually going through the metamorphosis. In some arthropoda like honeybees, individuals are produced by the parthenogenesis. So this is what you see here is the life cycle of a honeybee, where the adult is actually laying the eggs, and then these eggs are going through the different developmental stages like larva, pupa, and all that, and then ultimately it is forming the adult. So this could happen because without even going through with the sexual reproduction, and can go without by the parthenogenesis. Some arthropodas are economically important, like the honeybee, silkworm, lobsters, prawns, crabs, and etc. So they are not causing any disease, or they are non-infectious. So they are economically good. So honeybee, honeybee is actually giving the honey, right? The silkworm is actually responsible for production of silk. Lobster is, or the prawn and crabs are being used as the food items. Some arthropodas are harmful, and they are vector for the several diseases. For example, the mosquito. So mosquito is a vector for many diseases like the malaria, chikungunya, dengue, and all other kinds of infectious diseases. So what they do is they just carry the diseases. So they, when they bite one person, they actually going to carry the infection, and then they will bite the next person. They will actually going to deliver the things. Even the cockroaches are also known to spread the different types of diseases, and centipedes as well as the spiders are also associated. So this is what you see here is the reproductive system of the cockroach. So this is the male and female reproductive systems, and this is the female reproductive system, where you have the well developed ovaries, and then you have the oviducts, and then you have the place where you can have the fertilizations, and then they once, so fertilization is internal, but the development and all other things are external as far as the cockroach is concerned. Even for the mosquito also, it is the same, where the female mosquito is laying the eggs in the in the stored water, and that's how it is actually. And then these eggs are actually developing into the larva and all other kinds of stages, and that's how it is actually forming the adults. Similarly, the cockroaches are also laying the eggs, and that eggs, you might have seen, it is actually being put it into a pouch like structure which is called as cocoon. And in this pouches, if you open this pouch, what you see here is the eggs are actually being arranged on both sides of this particular pouch, and that's how it could be 8 or it could be 16 cockroaches are being developed from this single pouch. So this is all about the two classes, like the Annelida or the Arthropoda. And then let's move on to the next phylum, and that next phylum is called as the Mollusca. So the phylum Mollusca is also called as they are essentially aquatic, mostly marine. Few are freshwater and few are terrestrial forms. What you see here is the terrestrial form of the animals. They may be found in a hidden parasite in the interior of some other animals. So they are, some are also parasitic, so they are found inside the animal also. They vary in size from the giant squids and claim to the little snail, millimeter long. So this is a snail, right? They have at least two character, radula and mantle, not found elsewhere. The body is soft, unsegmented, except in this particular group. Bilateral symmetry, coelomates, and then triploblastic. So they have the three germ layers, like the ectoderm, endoderm, and the mesoderm. They have a tissue system grade of body organizations. So they don't have the organ system, they have a tissue system. The body consists of the head, foot, mantle, and the visceral mass. So body is consist of the head, foot, mantle, and the visceral mass. The body is clothed with the one layer often called as the epidermis. The body is commonly protected by an exoskeleton calcareous shell of one or more pieces secreted by the mantle. So this is what is the external, the exoskeleton, which is made up of the calcareous shell, and it is being secreted by the mantle. The classical example is Chiton, Octobus, Sepia, and Pila. So these are the, what you see here is a Pila actually, and then these are the different form of the Sepia, and they are actually being present inside. So this is like all of the example, like the Pila, Helix, Limus, Dental, Unio, Octopus. So these are the separate, some of the examples, and this is the Chiton. In a typical mollusk organism, what you see here is that it has three different parts, and it actually has a mantle which going to secrete this the exoskeleton, and within that you're going to have all the different types of organs. It's going to have the nerve cords, it's going to have the mouth in the front, and then it has the foot. That foot is important for them to provide the locomotions. Then it has the stomach, digestive glands for digesting the things, and then it has the gonads, and then it has the intestine, then it has a true coelom, and it also has the mantle and the anus in the front. Then it also has the gills, which actually allows them to go for the respiratory systems. The head is distinct, bearing mouth, eyes, tentacles, and other sense organ, except in the Pellicida and the Scaphoba. So you can see here is it has a very distinct head, which actually contains the eyes and mouth and tentacles and other sense organs. The ventral body is modified into a muscular claw-like structure. The foot, which is variously modified for creeping, burrowing, and swimming. So what you see here is a video where, which actually I have prepared, and what you see here is that Pila, or the trying to move, right? And what you see here is this actually. If you see this particular type of food, so this is actually a food which is modified for creeping. So this food is actually alive. So it is actually gliding on that particular food. So the food is actually a muscular claw-like surface. So it is actually like a kind of a surface, and on this surface only the organism is actually gliding. You can imagine this is exactly the similar kind of system what is present in our tanks, right? So if you have seen a tank, what is there in the tank is a chain, right, on which you are actually having a body, right? So this chain actually moves onto wheels, right? So there are wheels, and when this wheel moves, the tank is moving in any direction, and that's how the tank has an advantage compared to all other vehicles what is present in the army, that it actually can go to any surface because it does not require the road or any other type of surface to be prepared, because what it is doing, it is running on its own surface. This is exactly the same advantage what the animals belonging to the phylum Mollusca is, because the animal has its own feet at the bottom, and on top of this it is actually having the body. So what happen is this feet is actually sliding onto the surface. So this body is actually, and below to this it is actually is very slimy, right? So it actually slides, and that's how it does not have much friction, and because it has provided its own surface, it does not require the organism to be dependent on to the type of surface is present. It can move on to any surface. The mental or the palladium is a fold of a body wall that leaves between itself and main body, the mental cavity. The visceral mass contains the vital organ of the body in a compact form, taking the form of a dorsal hump or the dome. So this is what you see here is the mental, like, and that actually houses the most of the vital organs, whether it is organs related to the digestive system or whether it is organs related to the circulatory system. And then at the bottom you see this is the mouth, this is the food, right, what we are talking about, which actually allows them to go for the motion. So you will see that I have prepared a small movie clip, and where I have shown you how the organism is moving from one part to another part. And this movie I have prepared in our institute. The body cavity is hemocoel. The coelom is reduced and represented mainly by the pericardial activity, gonadial activity, and the nephridia. The digestive tract is simple with anterior mouth and the posterior anus, but in a gastropods or the scaphoids and the cephalopods in the intestine becomes a U shape, bringing the anus to a anterior part. So in the different parts, different type of animals, you have the organization of the mouth and the anus differently. In some cases, it is the straight, so the mouth is on one side and the anus is on the other side, whereas in some cases there will be a U-turn, right? So because of that the anus will come somewhere closer to the mouth, but that is a very minor issue which is related to the different organization of the digestive system within the animal itself. Then the rasping organs, reticula, usually present except in the pelycopoda. The circulatory system is open type except in the cephalopods. So circulatory system is an open type where the blood is actually going to be filled into the cavity, and that is actually going to be the way it is actually going to provide the nutrition as well as the oxygen to the different part of the body. That the respiratory organs contain numerous gills or the ctenidia, usually provided with the ophradia, and at the base, the lung is developed in a terrestrial forms. So in the terrestrial form, you have the lungs, whereas in the aquatic or the marine form, you have the different types of gills. The respiration is direct or by gill or the lung or the both. The hemocyanin is the respiratory segment. So this is very different, right? You have the hemocyanins, which means the blood is actually going to be a blue colored blood compared to that the red colored blood is present in the human beings, because the human being contains the hemoglobin compared rather than hemocyanin. Excretion is by the kidneys. The nervous system consists of the cerebral, pleural, pedal, and the visceral ganglia joined by the longitudinal and transverse connections and the nerves. The ganglia usually form a circumferring rings. Sense organ consists of the eye, statocyst, receptor for touch, smell, and taste. So this is all the organs what is being present in the in a unio. And what you see here is it has the gills for the respirations, then it has the mental, then it has the male and female gonads, then it has the ganglions, and it has a foot which is used for the locomotions, then it has a mouth in the front, and then it has the anus at the bottom. So this is like and then it has the heart which is connected through the different types of aorta, and that's how it is actually going to provide the blood. The circulatory system is of the open type, and then you have the digestive system where you have the mouth in the front, and then you have the well developed stomachs, then you have the intestine, and then the intestine is then ultimately at the end you are going to have the anus. So this is all about the phylum Mollusca. And apart from the this, you also have the different types of sexes, which means it is actually a dioecious, which means it actually has a separate male and female. But in some cases, it is also monoecious, which means it is actually hermaphroditic, which means both sexes are present in the same organisms. The fertilization is external or the internal, depending on the different types of species. The development is direct or with metamorphosis to the chacophore stage called as the veliger larva. So you can see here is that you have the two organisms, one is male and the female. So these are the dioecious plants, dioecious animals. So one is male is throwing the sperms into the and ovum by the females, and then there will be an external fertilization, and after the fertilization it is actually going to form the larva. Then this larva will actually go through with the developmental stages, and ultimately it is going to form the adults. So this is all about the mollusca, and so far what we have discussed about Annelida, Arthropoda, and mollusca. And let's move on to the next higher level of animals, which is called as the Echinodermata. So Echinodermata is a very exclusive class because they are the spiny skinned animals. They are mostly being present at the bottom of the ocean. So they are exclusively marine. So there is no freshwater Echinodermata possible. Solitary, sedentary, or free living, colonial, and they are benthoic, which means they are present at the bottom of the ocean. They are radial symmetry with the pentamerous symmetry, which means they are radial symmetry means they are actually can be divided into two parts either by any mean, right? So I think we discussed about this radial symmetry, and they are the pentamerous symmetry, which means they are going to have the five arms in their body structure. So a classical example is the starfish. The bodies are spherical, elongated, and star-shaped. The body does not have a well-defined head, so there is no well-defined head-like structures. It's a kind of a flat surface, right? The spiny exoskeleton present made up of the calcareous plates. It has the presence of water vascular system in the body for the locomotions. The water enters the water vascular system through an opening called as the metropolites. So what is meant by the water circulatory system is that the system is composed of the canals connecting into the numerous tube fits. So it has a canal-like structure. So you can see that it has a radial canal on. So all these arms are actually having the canal-like structures, and then the water is actually entering into this system through an opening which is called as a metroporite. So once the water enters into this, it actually goes out through these radial canals, and so echinodermas move by the alternatively contracting muscle that force water into the tube feet, causing them to extend and push against the ground, and then relaxing to allow the feet to retract. Which means once so they have the the contracting muscles through which the water is actually pushed in, and then it goes out from these radial canals, and because of that it actually can be able to uh, you know push the grounds, and that's how it actually can move through within the surface of the ocean. The examples are starfish, which is a classical example of the Chionodermata. Then you have sea urchin, then you have bitter star, and you have also have the sea cucumber. So these are the examples like sea starfish and all these kind of things. And then you have the Echinodermata. Echinodermata are carnivorous, so they are actually always feeding on to the molluscans like the pila and all unio. They move with their arms and tube feet, like the suckers, what is present onto their arms, right? The respiration is by the peritoneal gills, and the circulatory system is greatly reduced. It is of open type, and heart is absent. The nervous system is simple with the ring around the mouth and the radial nerve in the arms. The sexes are separate and fertilization is external. The development is indirect. They show a high power of regenerations. So the sexes are separate, which means the male and females are separate. So you can see that this is the development. These are the the life cycle of the one of the Chionodermata. So where you can have the eggs as well as the sperm being produced by the the adults, then they will swim and fuse, and then there will be the fertilizations, and then eventually there will be a metamorphosis, and that's how it is actually going to form the adults. So far what we have discussed about the Annelida, Arthropoda, Mollusca, and Chionodermata, and all these organisms does not contain the notochord, right? Which means all these are the non-chordatas. So whatever we have discussed so far are the non-chordata. Compared to that, if the notochord is present, the organisms are going to call as chordata, right? But there is an organism which is actually being connected, or which is are going to be considered as the intermediate between the organism which contains the notochord or the organism which does not contain the notochord, and these organisms are called as the hemichordata. Hemi means the 50-50, right? So it has the notochord, but it also does not have all the features which are belonging to the non-chordata. So let's discuss about the hemichordata as well. So phylum Hemichordata. These are exclusively marine animals, usually lives at the bottom of the sea. They are mostly free living, some may be sedentary. Body is soft, fragile, vermiforms, and the unsegmented. So the body is divided into three parts: the proboscis, collar, and trunk. So what you see here is the body part. So you see it has the proboscis, collar, and trunk. The buccal cavity gave rise to a rod-like structure, which is considered as a notochord by some scientists. So, buccal cavity actually contains rod-like structures, and which is sometimes being used or considered as a notochord because it provides the strength. And that's how the people are actually, considered that we should keep these animals in not into a non-chordata or chordata, but into a separate phylum which is called as the hemichordata. They feed on the microorganisms present in the water, and they are spinky skinned animals. The classical example is the Balanoglossus and the Sexoglossus. So these are the examples what is present of the organisms belonging to the hemichordata. The proboscis helps to make the burrow while entire body brings about the motions. So this is the proboscis, which is the kind of head actually, and that helps in making a burrow, and that's how the body is moves into that particular directions. The alimentary canal is complete, so it actually has all the parts of the alimentary canal, but it is either the straight or the U shape. So, for example, you see here in this case the alimentary canal is U shape, where you have the mouth in the front, and then you have the anus at the end, and in between you have the all of the body alimentary canals. The respiration occurs by the paired gills, so you have the gill slits and through which the respiration occurs. The gills open as the gill slits, and the circulatory system is simple and closed type. The blood is colorless, so it does not contain any kind of pigments, or it may be containing a pigment which does not have the intensity into the visible lights. The nervous system is embedded in the epidermis on the both dorsal and ventral side. The sexes are separate, so there will be separate male and female. The fertilization is external and the development is indirect through the free swimming larva. And this phylum is the connecting link between the non-chordata and the chordata. So you can imagine that we have classified the animals into the different types of phylum, and that's how we could be able to understand this important aspect, that these are the organisms which are actually being the connecting link between the non-chordata and chordata. So if we study these organisms, we could be able to understand the developmental stages, the evolutions, and all other kinds of properties, how the non-chordata got evolved and become the chordata, and what are the different advantages these organisms are offering when they are turning from the non-chordata to chordata. So with this, we have discussed about the Annelida, Arthropoda, Mollusca, Echinodermata, and the Hemichordata, which are the connecting link between the chordata as well as the Hemichordata. Within the chordata, we have the different types of groups which are actually being, having the different types of properties. So that actually we are going to discuss in our subsequent lectures. So with this, I would like to conclude my lecture here. In a subsequent lecture, we are going to discuss about the chordata, and within the chordata, we have the different types of classes and groups. So that actually will allow you to understand the basic properties of the chordata and how it is different and evolved from the non-chordata. So with this, I would like to conclude my lecture here. Thank you.